No more books. No more damn books. That was a quote from the most epic film ever made. I can't wait to get to this one.
Welcome back, everyone. Awful Takes, episode 23. Nobody likes you when you're 23.
Except for Michael Jordan.
Oh, yeah, nice. It's been a while. I apologize, everyone. Like I said in our last review, we were changing recording spaces. So we were kind of running into a little bit of a hiccup with getting a new recording space and trying to figure out how the sound and everything's going to work, time frame. And obviously it's also the holidays, so life just got really busy over the last couple weeks. So I apologize, but we are coming back in full force. I'm excited. Wallied's excited, I assume.
I'm pretty excited.
And we're here. So thank you guys so much for joining us again. My name is Mbahi.
Hello, I am Wallied from Sergator Productions.
I guess before I get started on anything, I just want to thank everyone for tuning in throughout this year. We have a total of over 3,000 channel views. We have 24 subscribers. I don't know. I couldn't be more happy. Again, when we started this thing, I didn't see it really going anywhere for at least a couple of years. Mm-hmm. But this trend, everything moving upwards, has just been really motivating to see. So thank you guys for joining us.
Yeah, definitely.
We have a very great movie to talk about. It's going to be interesting. But with us being gone for a while, we do have some news that we would like to catch up on. I know I have some things I want to talk about. Wallied, I know we have some things we want to talk about. What did you want to mention first?
For movie news, I came across an interesting kind of article that caught my attention in that Steven Spielberg, his next film is going to be apparently more like his older films, mm-hmm. with David Koepp set to write the film apparently. And it got me kind of a little curious to kind of see what direction Spielberg will take, because with Spielberg, it's kind of hard to tell a lot of the time with what types of films he's making, because he does so many different styles of filmmaking and he does so many different genre films. Mm-hmm. And especially with his last film, The Fabelmans, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I think it could have been a lot better. I was kind of curious to kind of see what kind of direction he would take with it. And I was curious to kind of hear what your kind of thoughts were, seeing as you're a big Spielberg fan.
Yeah, Spielberg for me, if he's not the top, he's definitely in the top directors for me of all time. I feel like I some of my other top favorite directors, obviously I love them, but the thing with Spielberg that I appreciate a lot is he's very diverse. His films are very, very different. Like we've said on the podcast before, he has animated films, he has horror films, he has biographical picks, he has war films, he just has such a broad range. And with Spielberg, he's one of my only favorite directors who really kind of does that. Most of my other top directors, they kind of stay in their wheelhouse, you know. They kind of branch outwards a little bit when it comes to like themes and things like that. But Spielberg, I feel like, is the one director that I love that really just, he'll go for anything. He'll try whatever, he'll do whatever. And I think to me that is such a big upside when I think of him. I'm always excited when it comes to his movies. However, I will say a lot of his more recent movies do feel a bit more like he's churning out kind of like a product rather than him really kind of, you know, putting his own stamp on things. I guess it could be in terms of his age, you know, maybe he is getting kind of to the point where it's just like, you know, I'm here, I got to do this, I want to do this film, and just kind of executes it.
Yeah, it's more of like a job almost.
Yeah, and he hasn't really kind of blown me away or impressed me too much in the past couple of years. However, I'm always going to watch what he's going to churn out, you know, and
Yeah,
to
of
hear that
course.
he's kind of going back to maybe a little bit, you know, of his older wheelhouse is exciting. And obviously, I can't wait to hear more about this project. I don't know if there are any names attached yet in terms of actors or writers.
I know David Kep is a screenwriter
Mhm.
attached for the project, and there's even a release date for it too, set for May 2026. And the film is titled The Dish.
Hmm.
So we'll kind of have to see until more info comes out about it. But I don't know. David Kep is a writer I've kind of enjoy a bit. He's kind of a little hit or miss for me. I enjoyed when he wrote for like the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man film, but
Yeah.
when it came to kind of like writing for one of the Indiana Jones films, at least for Crystal Skull, in my opinion, I wasn't really too crazy about it, unfortunately.
Yeah. I feel like David Kep is very just kind of like borderline, like good, you know? I feel like he's not really like a screenwriter who is looking to blow you away with every script or something, which I mean is fine, you know, like some of my favorite screenwriters, like they kind of know the project they're tasked to do, you know,
Yeah.
which is cool. You know, I get it. Not every movie do you need to reinvent the wheel. So I guess that's kind of just my viewpoint on David Kep in general, I would say. But yeah, I guess we'll definitely talk about it more when we hear more news and stuff. I am very interested. I will say he's not to the point where I feel like he's turning out bad movies. I still feel like he's pretty good.
He's pretty consistent. I wouldn't say he's like a Zemeckis, you know, where it's
Yeah.
just like, it's just gotten worse and worse over the years. I mean, like I said, I still enjoyed The Fablemans. You know, it was a lot more of like a kind of autobiographical film about Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
You know, I still got to check out his West Side Story. I heard really
I need
good
to
things
see
about that.
I need to see that too.
But I don't know. I enjoyed Tintin. I really loved his
That's a
Tintin
great
film from
movie.
like 10 years ago. Ready Player One was all right, you know. But
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, I would just say it's mostly consistent.
Yeah. Just kind of like good. It's a good movie, you know?
Good, but not unlike, you know, like an Indiana Jones or like
Exactly.
a Jurassic Park.
Or
level.
Jaws or something.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, we'll talk about it more when obviously more news comes out. Because again, I really do feel like Spielberg he's in the top directors all time. Like he's just that good.
Yeah, and it's always a fun discussion with Spielberg too, you know, especially
Yeah.
because he has just such a wide variety of films and everything. And it's always intriguing to see what kind of films he ends up making, you know.
All right. There have been some trailers that have been coming out recently that I would like to talk about.
All right. What do we
We'll
got?
start with the first one. A little bit, I guess, controversial. Obviously, nowadays we are in the live action adaptation remake era. You know, we've been in it for the last 10 years. Technology has advanced really far when it comes to live action animation. So studios are looking back at their old, you know, hand-drawn animated films or 3D animated films and, you know, what can we do to kind of retell this story in I guess, you know, a new way. Sometimes it's the same way. Sometimes it's a totally different way. And in terms of these projects, they've been, for me, very hit or miss. Some I don't mind. Like I would say like The Jungle Book was one that I liked.
Oh yeah, that one was okay.
I would say the Cinderella one I liked as well. It was like a live action kind of remake.
I didn't watch that one.
Other than that, there have been a few here or there that I thought just were kind of okay. But then usually most of the time I just am like, did this need to be made? You know, we could obviously talk so much about
The Lion King.
We could talk about that horrible Beauty and the Beast one. I did not like that one at all.
Okay. I did not like the Mulan one at
yeah.
all, or the
Or
Aladdin one. Was
oh
not
yeah, Aladdin.
with Will Smith.
It's crazy how many there are.
Yeah.
And obviously there are more coming down the pipeline. We have Lilo and Stitch coming out. We no real trailers or anything. They announced a Moana one before they even released Moana 2.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Dwayne Johnson announced it.
Yeah. So we're getting a lot of them. All right. So just keep this in mind, guys. Your favorite property is not safe. Okay. Whatever deep love, childhood favorite property you have, it is not safe. It is on the table. And now DreamWorks is following suit with Disney with their How to Train Your Dragon live action. This is a weird one for me because How to Train Your Dragon is one of my favorite animated movies of all time. And not to mention, it is one of the biggest surprises I think I've ever had watching a movie. DreamWorks at that time for me was very just kind of like B-tier Disney is how I would say. The only really DreamWorks film that like really impressed me was obviously Shrek 2. And I just remember seeing the trailer. I was just like, oh, that looks weird. It's just like kind of like a dragon thing, you just kind of dismiss it.
Like a dog. Yeah.
Because that was at the time when Pixar was in its A-list status. You waited every year for the new Pixar movie. So seeing that trailer, I was just like not too excited for it. And then obviously when the movie came out, it was one of the greatest animated movies I've ever seen. And then the trilogy ended up coming out, and man, that's just amazing filmmaking.
Yeah,
amazing
they're all in just like
storytelling.
such a fantastic quality, especially the Hidden World is like amazing. And it's such a perfect conclusion to like the How to Train Your Dragon trilogy.
So good. And I know eventually we'll talk about this trilogy in general. I know Wallied has a deep appreciation for it. So hearing that they're doing this live action remake, I will admit I was not excited about it. To me, it just the trilogy's so good. Like, where's the improvement?
Where could you go with, I guess, an interpretation like that?
Exactly.
Also?
And I guess watching this trailer, I was not surprised to find out that they aren't really changing much. Everything looks. Some shots, I'm not lying, are literally just a shot for shot live action remake of the animated film.
The first one, yeah.
So I'm just like, what's the point? Why are we doing this? Because I rewatch How to Train Your Dragon. The animation for me still holds up. There's still a lot of character in there. There's still a lot of emotion when you watch this, And I feel like this trailer just all it did was just remind me of the original, Yeah. And I guess that's kind of where I am with these live action remakes where it's like, okay, if you're not going to tell do anything different, what's the point? What's the point?
What's the reason?
I guess I will say straight off, I didn't end up liking Mulan too much, but I will say I did like some of the kind of swings they went for doing stuff kind of different. It didn't really feel completely shot for shot. They added new characters into it. They, went about it in a different way to where, okay, this isn't just simply just taking the original and putting a live action skin over it, They did things kind of different. And granted, overall, I didn't end up liking the movie all that much, but I will give them props for, okay, you kind of went about it in a different way. So I can at least applaud that compared to like the Beauty and the Beast, very much just shot for shot, very much just here it is. Here's the movie, just a live action skin over it. And that's how I feel with this trailer. I'm just like, we're just doing the same thing, I don't know, Wally, did you feel any different watching it?
No, I mean, I kind of felt the same way. I think what was kind of funny watching the trailer was they brought Gerard Butler back to play Stoic, which he looks kind of a little weird, but I'm like, okay, sure. Yeah. I guess for me, I'm just kind of like, this ain't really it. I'm a little disappointed, especially with DreamWorks of all people, because I know they're kind of seen as like the anti-Disney a lot of the time, and so the fact they're kind of doing the same thing Disney's doing right now, it does kind of disappoint me, especially, and it's just like, I don't know. It worries me, especially with this one, because it's like, I don't want to see live action remakes of other DreamWorks movies.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I'm like really concerned about if this is to do successful. I don't know. I have a lot of questions But also, I just kind of see the trailer as just mostly nostalgia bait. If I'm being completely honest, I just kind of felt like, yeah, it's trying to kind of lure in people who love the first How to Train Your Dragon film, like you and I, But I just don't think it really works. It just kind of comes across, at least for me, as like a little manipulative, especially with like the music at the end and everything. But yeah, I don't know. It's doesn't look that interesting to me. I will say, I guess the design for Toothless in live action doesn't look too bad. It surprisingly doesn't look hideous.
I actually liked his look. Again, I feel like they knocked it out of the park with that original film. Toothless just feels and looks amazing. He feels real. He's just like a different approach to like a dragon. So I'm kind of glad they didn't really change him too much.
Same.
Again, this is weird because it's like, here we are saying, why aren't you changing it? And then I like some of the stuff that they didn't change, But I feel like with Toothless, it's like, you really nailed it with that first one. You don't really need to change the design,
Exactly. I guess I am kind of curious, though, if this is going to be like maybe a reinterpretation. I don't really know. I wonder if it's going to be more darker than the first, which would be kind of okay, I guess, that could maybe work, but I don't know. I feel like all the humor from the first would be kind of gone.
I do feel like we need to start talking in terms of more so like, what are they doing? Like I don't like seeing that anymore of people just acting dumbfounded. You guys went to go and watch these movies.
You paid money to see it.
You gave them the literal response they wanted to go ahead and do more. I hate how we're still in the day and age of what are they doing? Oh my God, it's why. I'm like, no, you guys all went to go see these movies. You gave them the returns they wanted. So here they are. They're going to give you more of what you want because you went and paid to go see these,
Well, especially now with like that, I've seen people complain online about like that new Mufasa film, but it's like, it doesn't surprise me they made it because it made $1 billion.
$1 billion. Like, you guys need to stop this whole narrative of we don't want this. I'm sorry. Like,
you guys want it because you keep paying to see it.
The money says otherwise, So I think here we are, probably, a decade so into this. We need to stop that conversation. We need to just accept it, And it's like I said, no property is safe now. Whatever your favorite animated movie was, please don't be dumbfounded when you see a live action adaptation. It's gonna happen, And again, like a recent one, Moana, like they're already doing a live action, and that's not even that old.
It's not even like 10 years old.
Yeah, so let's just accept it for what it is. We're here now. This is kind of the product of our own making.
Yeah.
Like when those first movies were coming out, if you really were against them, you didn't need to go see them.
It's very simple. But yeah.
All right. Another trailer I wanted to talk about. I don't know if you've seen this. I'm just kind of throwing it on you, but it came to mind. The 28 Years trailer.
I didn't see it, and the only reason I didn't was because I kind of want to go in not knowing too much, especially with Danny Boyle and Alex Garland returning. But
it's very short. It's very to the point. I guess the only thing I just wanted to talk about in the trailer is there is audio they use in the trailer, and I guess it's like some kind of like song or something that was, I guess, used to mentally torture people.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So hearing that and seeing the visuals of this trailer, it's insane. It looks amazing. I couldn't be more happy with the first reveal of this movie because I feel like it is kind of reinvigorating zombies, Zombies have been a little dormant, I guess I would say, over the past, 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, especially with Last of Us and then Walking Dead and that whole downhill and everything.
Everything just kind of imploded on itself. There was too much. There was too much output. And, zombies just kind of, you kind of did all you could do with zombies, you know? Yeah, here we are seeing this new trailer and it looks fresh. You know, this looks like, I'm like, oh shit, I remember zombies were the thing 10 years ago. And this trailer just reminded me of like that time period and still being impressed when you see something like this, you know? So I'm just really excited. I know the response to this trailer has actually been pretty big. People seem to be really excited for it. I had friends talk to me like, where can you watch the first one? And I guess they actually took it off streaming in a bunch of places.
Yeah, it was very hard. I know when I watched it last year, it was like so hard to find, actually. Yeah.
So be ready, I guess. You know, I feel like when it eventually has, what I'm assuming is they're gearing up for like a big streaming debut, kind of similar to some of these other films. You know, I feel like they're going to kind of try to advertise that in a little bit of a way to where it might just drop on Netflix. And I guarantee you'll see it in the top streaming trending picks when it eventually comes out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looks exciting. I'm excited for it. Danny Boyle, I feel like this is kind of similar to a George Miller returning to Mad Max. He's returning back to a pop cultural moment that he had hands in creating, you know? And he's coming back to it in like a fresh way, you know? Like, okay, I can do the same thing, but I can also do this in a different way. And this really does feel fresh. Despite all the zombie stuff we've seen, the countless games I've played, you know, this feels like, okay, this is kind of one of the creators returning and not really just playing it safe. I really recommend watching the trailer. I really feel like you'd like it. But if you want to, you know, stay away from it, I'm not going to mention anything seen in the trailer. Besides that, music was just such a great choice. I'm excited. And it's exciting to hear a lot of people hyped for it, especially my friends. They haven't seen the first one, you know?
Oh, wow.
And they haven't seen, I guess, like all those other zombie things you love. You can look back to that first one and thank it for a lot of the trends and things that it helped set, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, we'll obviously talk more about it here when the movie eventually drops. I feel like leading up to it, we'll probably review like 28 days, 28 weeks.
Okay. Yeah, definitely.
But I'm excited for it.
Yeah, because I love 28 Days Later. I haven't seen 28 Weeks Later, but yeah, no, I'm excited to see Danny Boyle like returning to a series that he loves, you know, one of his films that he loves, you know.
And this doesn't feel like a situation where he felt like forced. From what I'm hearing behind the lens and behind the scenes is all these guys, this has been in the works for a while. They've just kind of waited for everyone's schedules to kind of line up. Obviously, Alex Garland said in his interview at the beginning of the year that he wants to be very hands-on with this project. He's here the same with Danny Boyle. This is not just simply, oh, let's come back for a paycheck, you know?
Cash grabby, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. One other thing I'm going to mention, we are allegedly, I don't know if this is true, we are days away from the Superman trailer coming out.
Are we?
Apparently, it's gonna. At first, I heard the rumor that it's gonna be making its debut in front of Mufasa. And then days later, they'll put it online. I'm not gonna lie, this might be a Phantom Menace situation where I pay to go see a movie, I watch the trailer, and then I leave.
Oh my God!
I'm sorry, guys. We are days away. If these rumors are true, which I don't know yet, I will say I am leaning towards them being true because James Gunn, he's very active on Twitter and he will shoot down rumors pretty fast. That's the one thing that I actually like with him as a president head of a studio is he doesn't really play the whole rumor game. He doesn't let things get out of control. The moment people start speculating on stuff like there was recent speculation about the Batman 2. Oh, it's going to have Freeze in it. It's going to be this story. And he'll just very simply go on Twitter and be like, yeah, this is fake. Don't listen to this. Or, casting rumors. They casted the new Batman. They know who they want to play Batman. They know who they got for Wonder Woman. And he'll simply say, there's no casting. Nothing is definite. Like, don't believe these rumors. So when it comes down to this trailer, he has not said anything. So I am very much crossing my fingers that this is true. If it is, man, I am so excited. I didn't think we would get it this soon. Obviously, the film comes out in July. But you can bet that we're going to be talking about it when it comes out. So excited. Again, I know I've talked about this movie a lot, but it's my most anticipated movie of the year. And before the end of the year, I'll just make a little announcement. We are going to go over our most anticipated movies of next year. We'll put together a list, each one of us, and we'll do like a top 5, top 10, whatever. And then we'll talk about our top 10 movies of this year. And then we will also do maybe like our worst movies of this year, because I actually have a few that I want to talk about.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have a handful. I was looking through my Letterboxd. I'm like, oh my God,
exactly.
I've seen so many terrible things.
And I don't want to review them. I don't want to waste time with a review, but I feel like when we do our worst movies of the year, we can kind of knock them out. Just do like brief mentions.
That's okay.
Because I don't want to get in depth at all. Obviously, there are a few that you guys have seen. I'll mention one, Trap. I just absolutely hated.
I haven't seen that one. I still got to check that one out.
And then the freaking Jake Gyllenhaal Roadhouse, whatever the hell that was. I couldn't, with Conor McGregor. Oh, it's so terrible.
Yeah, I didn't see that one.
Yeah. But we'll get into those later. Yeah. All right, Wallied, what are we going to be talking about today?
Oh, man, we got a winner on our hands today. We're talking about Fateful Findings by Neil Breen, who not only directed and wrote the film and not only acted in it, but he also did the set decorating for it. He did the editing for it. He did everything, actually. It's crazy. If you look at the crew credits, he actually did everything. I guess to kind of tell you what the movie is about, because when you watch it, you don't really know. It's basically about a guy who is a novelist for like half of the movie. And he basically gets in a really bad car crash, and he ends up kind of having these random mystical powers that he had as a child. So after a while, he decides he doesn't want to write the novel anymore. And basically he decides that he wants to start hacking into the government for corrupted things, according to him. And his long-lost childhood friend comes back into play, and there's a really kind of creepy line where he says, "I've loved you since you were 8." And it's funny because they're supposed to be the same age, but she looks like she's in her late 20s, and Neil Breen's like in his early 50s. And then there's also a subplot too that happens with this husband and wife that leads to a really kind of quote-unquote sad scene. I'll get into it later. So I'm sure Nabahi's probably wondering, how do you find something like this? No pun intended.
Oh my God.
So I found this while I was on YouTube one day. One of the clips from this film popped up in my recommendation tab, and I just clicked on it, and I was like, what is this? Like, what is this? Like, is this a joke or something? So I ended up doing a little bit more digging, and I kind of went down a bit of like a rabbit hole of like Neil Breen and his films, and I kind of realized they have a big kind of following online, sort of, where it's just more of like kind of like the same appreciation like Tommy Wiseau's The Room usually gets, It's kind of like that, but more niche. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I found it. And I guess I have a lot to say about this movie. But before we get into it, I'm very curious to hear if Nabahi, did you finish it? Did you make it through it?
I finished it.
Okay.
It was very hard. It was one of the hardest watches I think I've ever had watching a movie. For those of you guys who don't know, I would put this in the same vein as like a Birdemic or a Talking Cat or
a talking cat?
or a Food Fight, or any of those movies. This movie just really feels like, how did this get made? Who made this? How, after did they make this? Did they think that this was okay to show people? After they showed people, how are they still alive knowing the reception that this got? This movie is very much in that same vein of, I'm just going to say it, an abomination. This movie's an abomination. This movie shouldn't have been made. So many things. It's just like a weird amalgamation of like a 50-year-old making like a student film, and they just throw every thought they have and put it in this movie. And the acting is atrocious. The editing is literally feels like the editor fell asleep, and then they would have to wake him up, and he'd be like, "Oh shit, I need a cut from the scene," and then it just cuts. Like, all the scenes end like that. They literally just have no rhyme or reason. Either they go on too long, or they're too short to where you're like, why was that there? Like, countless times while you're watching this movie, it's just like, whoa, what were they filming? Like, what director literally told people to do this? And it's atrocious. And there's just the weirdest story going on. And again, I just feel like they threw everything they had. There's just like weird governmental subplots. There's espionage. There's this like kind of weird romance. There's this weird story, just murder story. It's just like, what is this movie? It's insane. And I guess I would say I'm in a different opinion. I don't think this is in the same way entertaining as The Room. I feel like The Room feels a bit more comedic in its tones. It feels a bit more like they were trying in there, with a lot of the stuff in there. This, I feel like the acting, I'm just like, how did that happen? How did they cut that and think that this was okay? The line delivery, the acting, like literally the movements that they do are just so awkward. And it's like, I feel like I'm watching something that should not have ever been released, Again, just a straight up abomination. It's insane. But yeah, I finished it. And here we are.
Okay.
It's crazy.
I think for me, with the acting, I think what I find so hilarious about it is that it is taking itself so seriously that you just can't help but like keep a straight face watching it for like the entire time. And I think that's what I find so entertaining about this film, is that it is so awkward in nature, and it's very clear watching it that it's trying to be like 5 movies at once, but Neil Breen can't pick one thing. And I find it to be such a fascinating mess. It's like when you're on the road and you see a car accident, and it's like you just can't help but look at it. That's kind of like that. It's like that, but like the film version of this. And so I guess, there's a really funny scene towards the beginning where Neil Breen is just looking at like this car, and he just stays right there, and he ends up getting like hit by the car, and I don't know why. It's really funny to me. It was just how it's portrayed, and the music that comes in is like just so bizarre and awkward, and it sounds like stock music you'd kind of find. And what I find hilarious about the scene, funny, bad, nothing in this movie made me laugh unironically, just kind of want to put that out there. But But I find it funny that all these people, they just come out of nowhere, and the way it's edited is like it's edited at like close-ups on their face. And they're all, someone call 911. Hey, are you okay? And it feels like you're watching like a PSA. And I just thought that was so hilarious. And I was just like, it's very bizarre of how you would edit somebody getting in a car accident, but sure. So after that, he ends up getting this weird bandage thing on his face that looks like it's something from like Phantom of the Opera. And yeah, the girl, his childhood friend, quote unquote, is like a doctor, but he doesn't piece the two together because obviously he's still in like a big coma. And that music that he keeps spamming comes back into play, which I find just, yeah, he just really loves that song, I guess. And it just drags, it goes on for a very long time, and then eventually he decides to get out of the hospital. And I'm surprised that like none of the doctors like decided to like come back and get him, or like, you know, he just discharged himself, I guess. I guess it's like a just leave whenever you want type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we get to one of the most awkward scenes I've ever seen in a movie, where he's taking a shower and the wife comes in and she
God.
And she just comes in and she's like, wait, you have to go back to the hospital. And out of nowhere, she decides to take off her clothes. This is a real scene, by the way. She takes off her clothes. She gets in the shower with him, and they just hug. And they kind of like lean in for a kiss for a bit, and then this is serious.
This is
I
insane.
can't do this. I don't know if I can do this. So yeah, after that, it cuts to them in bed. Very awkward transition.
All the transitions are like that.
Yeah, that one's extra awkward though. And then yeah, after that, he starts writing his novel. I don't know what the novel's really about, but it doesn't matter because the movie gives up on it like halfway into it. So everything you just watched from the first half was really pointless. Yeah, and then after that, you get introduced to this random couple who are just kind of there. They have they're just kind of there to be dramatic effect, I guess. I guess what was your interpretation of this couple that shows Neil Breen's friends, I guess.
I really think he was trying to have like maybe like a bit more serious kind of subplot or something, because obviously everything else is super like out there. And I didn't know if maybe he was trying to have like a more like kind of grounded storyline of like relationship problems, you know? I really feel like this guy was like thinking in his head, like, you know what, let me tackle that. Let me try that. Let's try it, you know? Rather than simply thinking like, what story am I trying to tell? I feel like this guy never asked himself this question while making this movie. So yeah, it just feels super weird. Again, nothing feels cohesive in this at all. It's just so out of place, you know? And there are no redeeming performances in this movie at all. All of them are horrible.
What about his heartbreaking scene where he says, I cannot believe you committed. How could you have done this? I cannot believe you did this. What about that?
It's horrible. Like, again, I feel like this is a byproduct of the invention of digital cameras. I feel like when it's very much evident now in today's day and age that when you make things more accessible to people, not only are you going to up the amount of product that's out there, but you're going to dramatically increase the amount of any sort of substantial genre or anything like that. And this is very much a product of, anyone can afford a camera now. Anyone can afford, you know, editing software comes free on every computer. Anyone can afford that stuff now. And what you're going to see is the byproduct of that there's going to be a lot more bad movies now compared to back then. I would say something like The Room obviously came out very early 2000s. We were still in the day and age where, yeah, it was still kind of hard to get a camera, you know?
I guess
And
the exception with that too also was that that film did have a big budget also of like
exactly,
$6 million, and he did have film cameras,
he
using
purchased all that
yeah.
stuff, he invested money into it, and it turned out really bad and shitty in the worst possible way. And I feel like a lot of these movies that are very similar to The Room, they feel almost like just kind of like a copy, to where it's like, are they intentionally trying to make this bad? And I feel like that in The Room, that wasn't the case. I feel like Tommy Wiseau very much thought he was making a good movie. You know, the actors in it, I guarantee they thought this might be their big break, you know?
Guess it kind of was. To their extent.
With the amount of
Just-
auditions they had, with the amount of research that went into that, like, this movie just very much feels like maybe they were trying to do the same thing, you know? Because obviously The Room is just super big as one of the worst movies ever made, yet it came out at that time where not everyone had a camera, you know? And nowadays with technology, anyone can make anything. Anyone can record music, they can make films, they can release whatever, you know? So I feel like that kind of charm of The Room is not evident in this movie. This
Interesting.
very much feels like a kind of copy, you know? And that's what bothers me a lot with this movie. I'm like, because there's no way when you were editing this movie that you thought this is pretty good. There's no way, you know,
Well,
unless this
thing.
guy is that deranged.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's kind of the interesting thing with this is like, because I looked a bit into Neil Breen like a bit after watching this, and it's like the guy was like a real estate like agent for a while, and so I'm just kind of wondering if it's like he doesn't really have that much experience with filmmaking, and I don't know if he's like a film fan or anything. So I'm kind of wondering if it's maybe is like what he thinks movies are like, you know? So I'm kind of just see it as more of like him not really copying like a Tommy Wiseau, but rather just more like his interpretation of what a movie should be, you know? That's kind of how I took it, at least from like watching this and him and kind of looking a bit like into him afterwards, because there's not really much info about the guy online. So I kind of just saw it as like, this is his interpretation of like what a sci-fi drama would probably be, you know, to somebody who's probably never seen a sci-fi drama, you know. That's kind of how I felt, at least watching this, you know.
I feel like there's so much in it that really just feels like the worst version of something, to where I'm like, this guy had to have seen movies before. Like, I just don't believe that. I'm like, this guy, like, in scenes, I just feel like this just feels like the worst version of something I had already seen, you know?
Yeah.
Like, the awful scenes towards the end that involve like suicide and stuff like that. I'm like, you're literally just going down the playbook of literally suicides and you're just thinking of any specific one, like, oh, medication, hanging yourself, shooting yourself, and I'm just like, you're just throwing it all in because I feel like you don't know what else to do, and it's just, there's no rhyme or reason as to why, and it's just like, what, you had to have seen something before, you know? Same thing with the music, the editing, everything like that, the camera shots, the way the cameras will move and stuff. I'm like, okay, like this, I really don't believe that this is someone's like, has no involvement in movies, no knowledge of movies. I'm like, come on. These shots and everything, they don't speak to that, you know? I would expect if someone was making like a movie and they had no knowledge or anything, and you literally just gave them a camera, I feel like things would just be more like handheld. I feel like it'd be more like kind of in your face. This just feels like you're watching an awful daytime soap opera mixed with like a crazy out there plot. And it's just like, what are you making, you know? Like, you have your foot in two different areas, and then you're like throwing everything you can at the audience for what? Like, I don't know. I don't really think I really doubt that this guy had not seen anything. Like I again really feel like he saw something, whether it was The Room or not, or maybe some other horrible movies, and I feel like he was just like, well, I can't make anything that good, so why don't I make something really bad? So that way it's kind of talked about, you know,
Sure.
in that same vein. And to me, again, it's just like anyone can make a horrid movie. Anyone. You can give anyone any camera and editing software and ask them to put a movie together. And yeah, it might come out like this or it might come out worse than this. But is that worth talking about? Is that worth remembering years down the line? Is it like, come on, this is literally an abomination. Like, I just can't get past that. Like, this is horrid. It is absolutely horrid. Like, just watch any scene. Like, literally go on YouTube and watch any scene. And after you watch it for like 5 minutes, every scene is like that. And it goes on for an hour and 40 minutes. Literally an hour and 40 minutes. And it's like, what? Like, what am I watching, you know? And it's again, I don't get the same entertainment value as I did with The Room. The Room was very much like the start of it all, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, literally the worst movie ever made, yet these guys were convinced that they were making something good, you know?
Yeah.
That to me is the difference, you know? There's no way at any point any of these actors, after they cut and watched the dailies of that day, there's no way they thought this was going to be good. Like, maybe at the start, okay, maybe when, you know, you first were getting a team together, but as it goes on, there's no way. Like, that's literally how The Room happened. Like, throughout the making, the actors were just questioning, like, what's going on? You know, like, how is this going to turn out? Like, this is not good at all. And I just don't believe that was the case with this movie. I know that rant was really long, but that's just my overall feelings towards this movie. Sure. Again, I'd put it in the same conversation as a Birdemic, as a Talking Cat, as Food Fight. Like, it's an abomination. It is a stain on movie making, and it's not even worth talking about.
Oh, hold on.
It's horrid. But yeah, all right, continue, Wallied.
Yeah, for sure. No, I get it, you know. So something I kind of wanted to touch on a little bit more with the film is just that romance in the film is very, I feel like very forced is like an understatement with this film, because I feel like watching this a lot of the time, it feels so shoehorned in, and it's like, I feel like it was in there, kind of just put in there like last minute, because I feel like sometimes when I see like sex scenes from like the directors and the director is the actor, the main actor in this film, I always kind of see that like creepiness of like, are they just trying to like show themselves like sleeping with the actress, you know? And I feel like watching this a lot of the time, especially the shower scene, or especially the scene where he has like this other young lady that comes in, I feel like a lot of the time it just comes across as kind of weird, and I feel really uncomfortable watching it, you know, especially, you know, the barbecue scene that comes in, like I mentioned at the beginning, of like where she's supposed to be like the same age as him, and the film specifies this in like the first 10 minutes where they're like together at the forest.
Oh my God.
And so you get this like really awkward interaction with them where Neil Breen's character goes, "I have loved you since you were the age of 8." And just seeing them together, it's just like, I don't know. Is Neil Breen lonely? Like, is this supposed to be like him like venting that he's looking for somebody? You know, I don't know. That's how I felt watching this. Because you know how sometimes when like writers will kind of put in their personal problems to like as like a way to vent or use it as like an outlet. I kind of see that, but in like a more extreme, weird kind of way that feels just kind of like it feels like I shouldn't be watching this.
Yeah.
You know, and especially too later on when they go back to the forest again in the second half and they have that really awkward sex scene that just feels like I'm watching like a porno.
Yeah.
Almost, you know. I don't know. How did you kind of take away that romance? Because I know for me, that's kind of what was going through my head of like, okay, this just seems like somebody who's really lonely and they're kind of using film to maybe take advantage of like using actresses and just kind of using them as like sex objects.
I feel the same. It feels very like uncomfortable. It feels very like, okay, what? There's no relevance to what I'm watching right now.
Exactly.
You know? If there's no relevance, and again, like sometimes you have those instances where directors put themselves in certain roles, and it can feel a little weird. In movies like this, like The Room, it feels very much like I don't know if I want to watch this. You know?
Yeah.
Like I agree to Wallied's point. Like it feels like they're using this as almost like an excuse. Oh, you know, I want to get with this girl, so let me say I'm making a movie, and you know, she'll agree to it, and yeah, I can film this scene, and it's just like, oh god, like I hate it again. Like that's why I'm like, this is an abomination. Like because everything you're watching, you literally have one person that you can point to because he's the director, producer, writer, or whatever. It's like
he does everything. He's a one-man show.
And it's like you have these awful sex scenes. You have like this girl who like she's like, oh, she was here and she went swimming and she took her top off. And I'm like, what is this? Why is this in the movie? Like, I don't want to. This is just weird. And then he puts himself in these scenes where he's trying to show off this dramatic side to him. And it literally looks like when he's acting like past this point where he's overcoming this like pain of this accident or whatever, it all it looks like is you have someone who has like a migraine and the light in the room is too bright. That's literally the extent of his acting. He literally just starts like rubbing his eyes, acting like, oh my God, and he holds his head, and I'm just like, I feel like I'm watching one of those commercials where they're like, get these actors to be like, you have a headache, you have a migraine, and you need to act in that way. Like that's, it feels like those infomercials, you
like
know?
those pharmacy.
Yeah, those pharmacy commercials. Yeah. And that's the extent of his acting. And it is absolutely horrible. His line delivery is so god awful. And again, like when it cuts to him, or it cuts to any actor, there'll be like this brief pause where it's almost like they're waiting for like their cue to start the scene, and then they just start randomly. And then some of the scenes with him, I swear to God, this is exactly what happened, and you can't convince me otherwise. I feel like he was recording these scenes alone, and it's almost like he has his camera on a tripod, and then he presses record, goes to where he's supposed to start acting, to his spot, and he just starts freeballing it. And, you know, like he can't cut the camera, so he's just kind of sitting there spouting off these lines. And then the lines will come to like a stop. And then there's like a brief 3-4 second pause of just like, what's going on? And then he just starts up again. And I really feel like he was alone and he was just recording these scenes. And then he just had to go back to the camera and turn it off or cut the scene. And then the editor just didn't know what to do and was just like, well,
Neil Breen is the editor, so I guess.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Same thing. I feel like he was just like, I don't know where this scene should end, so he just let it go. God, I don't know.
Yeah, definitely.
This movie's uncomfortable in so many different ways. I didn't get any entertainment value from it. I think it's because, again, I've seen a lot of these types of movies. Like, obviously, one of the ones that I found a little bit more entertaining was probably, like, Birdemic. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I've seen clips, yeah.
Yeah. There's some entertainment Obviously, when you're watching with a group of friends, maybe that
The hangers.
it's almost like
Yeah.
your humor kind of drives your entertainment of the movie. So maybe in this instance, with me watching it alone, yeah, you kind of laugh for the first little bit. Like when they're in the forest, they find the stone and it turns
Oh,
to
yeah.
mushroom or whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah.
It's just Adobe After Effect. I don't know what the fuck. It's like iMovie effects or whatever.
Yeah.
You're kind of laughing, but then past like 10 minutes, you're like, all right, what am I doing? I'm sitting here watching this. What am I doing to myself? It's like I'm torturing myself. So yeah, I don't know. This movie's insane.
Yeah, I think the scene that perfectly encapsulates what you're talking about with like him feeling like he's in the scene alone or like recording alone is like where the dinner scene, which is edited in such a weird way with like the migraine thing that he's doing. And then there will be like scenes where you hear room tone, but then there's other like angles that they show where you don't hear any room tone. So it's like very jarring
Yep.
when you're watching it. And it's just like, okay. I mean, even without the room tone, it's still just really awkward. And it's just like, yeah, I guess this might be the most awkward dinner scene I've ever seen in a film, honestly. There's a couple things I wanted to talk about, and then we could get into ratings because I don't know if there's really much to talk about with this movie. I guess for me, I'm not really sure what the dream sequences were supposed to be. There would be these dream sequences that would show up sporadically throughout the second half, and that's kind of where I was kind of thinking about like the whole creepy factor of the film of like. Because you'll have these random scenes where he's naked, and then like the blonde girl that comes into play later, she'll just show up in the dream sequences with him. And so I'm just kind of wondering if it's supposed to be some kind of weird art, quote unquote, thing, And again, I guess it doesn't really play. I guess my interpretation would be maybe like this is his psyche, I'm guessing, and it's just a dark room. And so maybe it's his dark thoughts. I guess maybe question mark. Yeah, like I mentioned, the music they love to spam. He loves to spam the same music, and then the ending is probably I feel like the real cherry on top with this movie.
Absolutely,
he
insane.
gives this really funny speech, and it's intercut with the politicians that apparently he found their dark secrets of, and they basically. They basically start to kill themselves, and it's just so random and out there. And so he gives this speech. He ends up getting, I believe, assassinated. And yeah, it was just like the real cherry on top from everything you watch. And it's just like after watching it, at least for me, it was just like I felt like my brain was broken. I was like, wow, he did this.
He went there.
He took it to that level, and
Fuck.
yeah. So I guess that was Fateful Findings. There's some other things that happened, but I'm not gonna really bring them up. There's a whole thing with him getting pills from this doctor.
Oh my god.
And it's very just dumb. And there's some just really stupid editing choices in there. And then there's another awkward romance scene at the park where he gets really close to her face with a really uncomfortable close up. And then yeah, that's it. That was Fateful Findings. I guess I would say maybe the one okay thing that I was like the one silver lining that I found throughout the whole thing was there was a cool mirror shot that I kind of liked. And I guess I'll just say this. I mean, I wasn't bored watching it, which I guess is like an achievement in of itself, but I don't think it was great at all. Just there was some funny bad moments for sure, and just some moments where I'm just questioning how did he do this, So yeah, after this, he ended up, I guess, making some more movies. He has one where he has like an evil twin called Twisted Pair. And then he has a new one called Cade, the Tortured Crossing that got released last year. And yeah, that's Neil Breen for you, you know. I don't know, Neil. I don't know how to feel about this. Like, I really did not like this at all. And I regret even recommending this. But at the same time, I'm just in shock of
It's
like,
baffling.
it's like, how do you even, how do you even make something like this? How do you even like think to like have all these ideas and do absolutely nothing with them with just some of the most forced romance I've ever seen in a movie, and it just feels uncomfortable. And I'm kind of wondering if the intentions of this film are good, but I don't really think they are. And I feel like it's somebody going through a midlife crisis, and this is the product of it, you know, considering Neil Breen is a much older guy now. He's in his 60s and he's still making these types of movies. I just don't really know. I'm kind of conflicted, and like me even recommending this because it's like I'm giving attention to something that's like maybe not the best type of thing, and I just don't know if it's like if you know he's making these movies for the right reasons, you know.
There is a watching, for instance, like The Room. There's an entertaining value if you are with people. You can obviously joke around about what you're watching and things like that. But I feel like when I watch The Room, I can watch those scenes now and seeing the behind the scenes story of how everything went down. There's the entertainment value of these guys, like watching Tommy Wiseau, like for instance, in the end when he's like groveling over his girlfriend and everything, and he's destroying the room, and he's like has his girlfriend's dress. Like I don't know. When I watch that, I am 100% convinced that Tommy Wiseau thinks this is good, you know, and in that there's an entertainment value to where he's portraying heartbreak and he's acting his heart out. That's the one thing with Tommy that I guess you can give him, is that he seems like he's trying to do this, you know? When I'm watching this movie, I don't get that same feeling. I really feel like these guys all were trying to imitate that same thing, yet they lost the intention behind what Tommy Wiseau was doing of making something that he thought was good, you know? So yeah, maybe if I watched this with friends, it would have been a little bit more entertaining, maybe minutely so. But I feel like 30 minutes in, I still would have been like, all right, guys, what are we doing? Why are we watching this? Especially when the awkward scenes happen, like the sex scenes, that girl trying to, I don't know if she was like seducing him or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
She goes topless
She's like
in the
16.
pool. Yeah, and then she's in like the bathtub. I'm just like, I feel like one of us would have said like, all right, come on, what are we actually doing? You know?
Yeah.
Compared to The Room, that just feels, again, it feels like that's genuine to hit Tommy Wiseau as a person. Maybe this is how this guy actually is. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
But then I feel like with the making of The Room, there's that entertainment value of having competent people on that set. They're driving it in one way. Tommy Wiseau is taking it his way. So there's a level of competence somewhere tangled in that mess of a movie. You know, there's no competence anywhere at all. Nothing. Nothing. Like literally nothing. Again, that's why I don't even see this as a film. Like that's why I use the word abomination. Like I don't even know what this is. I don't know what I'm watching. I don't know how this got made. I don't know how this guy keeps making films. And here he is. Like, here it is. I don't know. This is, again, one of the worst things I've ever seen. I'm not even going to call it a movie or a film. And if I was giving it a ranking out of 10, I'd put it at a 0. And if I could rank it even worse than that, I would. I'd put it at a -20. Like, this isn't even a movie to me. Like, what what the hell is this? Yeah. So if you guys are ever wanting to watch something like this, watch it with friends. You guys might enjoy it in that aspect.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, especially when you first start it, it is laughably horrible. But past 10, 20 minutes, you're just going to question, like, what am I doing? Why am I here? Why am I giving time of my life and my existence to whatever the hell this is? That's the best way I can describe it.
Yeah.
Wallied, score. What are you thinking?
Yeah. I mean, it's entertaining. It's funny, bad. But I feel like even with that, it's not even something I want to revisit or ever really experience ever again. Yeah. And I don't know. The more I'm thinking about this, I guess, movie, and the more I'm like just kind of sitting with it, I'm just kind of wondering if it's for good intentions or if it's just for more just like his, I don't know, just like his gain of just him taking advantage of people and kind of manipulating them.
Yeah.
I guess 1 out of 10, which is like the lowest rating you could give it on like IMDb, or half star, you know? This is, I guess, a different side of filmmaking at its finest, you know? It's not the type of filmmaking you want to strive for. At least I would hope you don't want to strive for this type of filmmaking. I originally had it at a 3 out of 10 just for that funny bad factor, but I feel like the more I sit with it, I think it's a 1. It's like a 1 out of 10. Yeah, which is like the lowest rating. Yeah, I could probably give a movie, 1 out of 10.
It is crazy. So again, if you're looking to check this out, I'd recommend having your friends there, especially have that one funny friend who can like say funny things while you're watching it. You'd get more entertainment out of that than just simply watching this alone. I feel like this movie could be used for torture, and I feel like it would work. Because if I was held captive and this movie was on, I'd be like, just kill me. Just kill me. I can't watch this.
Jeez.
Like, this movie was painful to get through. So
sorry.
What's this guy's name? Neil Breen? Neil Breen. What are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Stop. Just stop.
Oh, also heads up, guys. I forgot to mention this when I recommended it, but you actually can't rent this movie.
Thank God. If I spent money on this, I would have. Oh, man, I would have called my bank to cancel that transaction. I would have canceled my card or whatever I had to do. There's no way I would have rented this film. Oh, my God.
So, yeah, heads up. If you're trying to look for this film, you can't rent it. You have to buy it for $20. However, I was able to find a copy online, and I sent it to Nabahi.
Yes, look for the copy. Don't
try to, I guess, support this.
Please
luckily
don't.
enough, my local library had a copy of this movie.
I guarantee Neil Breen drives around to local libraries and sneaks the movie into the rental slot. And he's all perfect. There we go. I guarantee you that's what happened.
Yeah, but I'll link the film in the description. So if you're curious at all and you still want to check it out after this discussion, I'll leave it there for you guys to just sit there and look in awe of Neil Breen and his really creepy sex scenes and his really bizarre acting that sounds like text-to-speech.
Crazy.
So yeah, we did it.
We did it. One of the worst movies ever made. Yeah. All right. So if you're going to check it out, I leave that to your own discretion. Do what you got to do, I guess.
Yeah. Wait, what are you going to recommend?
Oh.
What's the next recommendation?
We're in the Christmas season, so we're doing Jingle All the Way. A really bad movie, but I think there's entertainment to be had.
Okay, cool. I haven't seen this movie in like 10 years, so
Yeah,
this will
so
be fun.
we're gonna do some bad movies, and we're in the Christmas season, so we'll try to knock out a few. It's Awful Takes, episode 23. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you. That was our most epic review, so thank you.
It was quite the ride. All right, we'll see you on the next one.
Good day and good night, mates.